Hello, it's Toaster Party, and today I'm going to talk about what my picks are for the 5 best modern decks post-Yorion ban. So, it's been a few days now since Yorion's been banned, and there does seem to be a shift in the metagame. But without further ado, let's get into the list. Starting things off with number 5, Amuletitin. This is a very fast land-based combo deck that uses Amulet of Vigor in conjunction with Primeval Titan to be able to search up lands that result in a win. This deck is also very hard to interact with for a lot of decks due to the fact that it's mostly a land-based combo deck. There are ways to interact with things such as Blood Moon turning off the Valakut, and also you have to deal with Primeval Titan coming back because they can just search up a set of lands such as Teleria West and any bounce land to then search a Summoner's Pact to then try a combo win with Primeval Titan all over again. Very powerful deck. Let's move on now to number 4, Golgari Yogmoth. This is one of the bigger winners from the banning of Yorion. This is a mid-range creature combo deck that focuses on getting Yogmoth into play, while also going off with Undying creatures once Yogmoth is in play. This deck is incredibly consistent due to the access that it has to a bunch of tutors that put combo pieces from deck into play, things such as Eldritch Evolution and Chord of Calling. Even if they are not trying to combo off, they can then use those same tutors to be able to search Grist into play, which can then get incremental value to help in other matchups. Let's move on now to number 3, Indomitable Creativity. This is an incredibly powerful combo deck that uses the namesake card Indomitable Creativity to polymorph a bunch of tokens into Archon of Cruelty. This runs on a very similar access to the Cascade decks of Yestermonth, but instead of being restricted on cost, this deck is instead restricted on the permanent types that it's allowed to run. This difference in restrictions allows for Creativity to be able to run a much higher quality of interaction to be able to better control the board and implement its own game plan. A game plan, which I might add, is just as good if not better than a lot of the Cascade decks is. But now let's move on to number 2, Is It Murktide? This is an incredibly powerful mid-range / tempo deck that relies on using cheap threats in the early game to be able to whittle down opponents' life totals, while then also using cheap interaction to be able to control the board or preventing an opponent from comboing off. Why this deck sits at number 2 is because it has a very good matchup spread against a lot of the top parts of the metagame. Basically, it has a good matchup against most of the decks that beat Omnath Money Pile. It also got a slight boost against Omnath piles, with Blood Moon becoming a lot better due to Yorion leaving the format. Because the Yorion variants were always running 4 copies of Abundant Growth, which basically just turned off Blood Moon from being a usable card. So with that out of the way, it makes the sideboard strategy for beating that deck a lot more coherent. Speaking of that deck though, number 1, Omnath Money Pile. Arguably, this deck is better now that Yorion is gone, due to the fact that the main reason it was running Yorion in the first place was often to beat other Omnath Money Pile decks. This deck has access to most of the most powerful cards in the format right now, that being the Invocation Elementals, Renin 6, Teferi Time Raveler, and with Yorion gone, there is a bit of a downside that its mid-range matchups aren't as heavily favored as they used to be, but now the combo matchup is a lot easier to beat. And between the two, Omnath was generally going to win the mid-range matchup anyway, and its problem matchups were the combo matchups. Also, it still gets to run a companion with Kahira. While not as good, it's still a free card. And another and probably more important thing to note is that with 60 cards, the deck is far more likely to open a Renin 6 in the opener, a card that can really run away with the game in this kind of strategy. Well, that's all I had to say. Thank you all for watching. I hope you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you all have an excellent day.